You could be doing genuinely fine. Steady job, decent health, people who care about you, and still feel like you're somehow falling behind everyone else. That feeling is one of the most common psychological experiences of this exact moment across every age group. And here's what almost nobody explains properly. It has very little to do with your actual life, and a lot to do with a math problem your brain was never built to solve. Part 1. You're not imagining this. This isn't a small, personal insecurity. Recent research on young adults found that roughly 3 in 4 report real stress about the future, and only a small minority say they feel optimistic about it often. But it's not limited to one age group. People in their 30s feel behind on career. People in their 40s feel behind on savings. People in their 50s wonder if it's too late to start over. The specific milestone changes. The feeling itself doesn't. So if you feel this way, you're not uniquely behind. You're standing in an extremely crowded room of people who all quietly assume they're the only ones standing in it. Part 2. Why your brain gets the math wrong. Here's the actual mechanism, and it's simpler than it feels. You experience your own life in full. The boring Tuesdays, the false starts, the slow, unglamorous middle of everything you're working on. But you experience everyone else's life as a highlight reel. The launch, the promotion, the engagement photo, the finished result with none of the mess that led there. Your brain isn't built to automatically correct for that mismatch. It just compares what it's shown, your unedited full footage, against everyone else's greatest hits, and concludes you're moving slower. Researchers describe this as comparing your behind the scenes to other people's highlight reel, and it is mathematically not a fair comparison, even though it feels like one. There's a second layer too. Modern platforms are personalized specifically to show you the content most likely to provoke a reaction, which quietly means the exact content most likely to make you feel behind. It's not personal, it's just what the system learned keeps you watching. Part 3. The timeline nobody agreed to. There's also an invisible clock running in the background that almost nobody consciously chose. Somewhere along the way, most people absorb an idea of what life is supposed to look like by a certain age. A career, a relationship, a level of certainty, from family conversations, old movies, or just cultural osmosis. Nobody sits down and decides this on purpose. It gets absorbed quietly, the way a kid absorbs an accent. But that timeline was largely built decades ago, under completely different conditions. Different housing costs, different job markets, different average ages for every major milestone. People are still measuring a 2026 life against an outdated ruler, then feeling like a personal failure when the numbers don't line up. That's not a reflection of you moving too slowly. It's a mismatch between an old map and new terrain. Part 4. Why just don't compare yourself doesn't work. You've probably heard the advice already. Stop comparing yourself to others. And you've probably noticed it doesn't actually make the feeling go away. That's because the advice treats this as a willpower problem. It isn't. The underlying issue is that feeling behind isn't really about facts. It's your brain's way of resolving uncertainty. A vague, uncomfortable feeling of, I don't know exactly where I stand, gets converted into a much more specific, almost stabilizing thought. I am behind. Oddly, a bad certainty can feel more manageable to the brain than an honest maybe. So telling yourself to simply stop comparing doesn't address what's actually happening. The comparison isn't the disease. It's a symptom of your brain trying to locate itself on a timeline that was never real in the first place. Part 5. What actually helps? So here's what actually shifts this, based on what's working for people dealing with it right now. Notice the format, not just the feeling. Next time you feel behind after scrolling, name what you actually saw, an edited result, not someone's full, unfiltered process. That single distinction breaks the illusion faster than willpower ever will. Replace the question. Instead of asking, am I keeping up? A question with no real finish line, ask, am I building something that actually fits me? One question has an endpoint. The other is designed to never resolve. And notice what doesn't photograph well. The unglamorous stuff. Recovering from burnout, learning a skill slowly, stabilizing your finances, figuring out what you actually want, rarely gets posted, which means it's almost entirely invisible in everyone else's feed too. Their slow, boring middle exists. You just never see it.